Hey everyone, and welcome to my channel. I hope that you are all good. In today's video, I'm going to be doing a winter Disney acrylic design using some water decals from Candy Nails UK. They kindly sent me some of their Christmas decals, so I thought I would do a little haul at the start to show you them. So first up, we have their ugly Christmas jumper decals. I did have them upside down, that's why I flipped them around. And I really love these. I think they will look fab as accent nails in a set. And then I have the Xmas feeling #1. So they have these ones in a couple of different variations. And as you can see, they've got that bit of a Disney vibe to them. And then we have a Grinchy #4. Again, you can get these in a couple of different variations, hence the number on the end. And lastly, we have the ones that I'm going to use in today's video, which are their Christmas Mousie and Friends #3. So inside all of their packs of decals, you do get a little instruction leaflet, which is fab if you are new to using water decals. Candy Nails UK also sell glitters as well. So I was sent these two gorgeous mixes. So first up, we have this chunky glitter mix called Elsa. And then we have some of their pointed stars. So I absolutely love these, and I'm also going to use these in today's video. So on to the nails. I'm working on my Glamour Liz hand. I do have a discount code for Glamour Liz, which is always in the description box below. I have already applied my tips and a thin clear base, so we're able to jump straight in with the design. And I'm starting off with CJP Slush Fairy. So I've placed my bead down, blended out the back of it, and then I've just walked it down towards the free edge. And Slush Fairy is a really soft pink colour with just that hint or subtle sparkle to it. So it's a really pretty colour when you want a hint of glitter but not too much, if that makes sense. So I really like it if you're just looking for that little bit of shimmer. And then I've applied my cuticle bead, tapped it up into place at the cuticle, and then brought it down over the previous bead of acrylic. I'm keeping this layer fairly thin because I'm going to be adding those stars and then encapsulating. So I'm not worrying about creating any thickness or strength or structure. Then just using my wet brush, I dipped into the stars. I have just potted them up already off camera, and I probably picked up too many to begin with. So I did have to faff around just getting them into place and to make sure that there was not too many overlapping and things like that. So to make this easier, it is usually easier to just either pop some into a little glitter tray so you can just pick up a couple at a time, or just don't dive straight into the pot like I did. But I'm not adding any additional acrylic here because that Slush Fairy acrylic underneath is still tacky, so it will hold them in place enough until I encapsulate. And then I'm just keeping my brush nice and wet so I'm able to move them around and then just pressing them down. I just here wanted to show you how holographic they are. They are absolutely gorgeous. And then I'm going to do exactly the same on the little finger. So I've placed that bead of acrylic down, and then I'm just walking it down towards the free edge. I didn't want this layer to be too thin because Slush Fairy is a little bit sheer, especially when you're using it more on the wetter side like I did here. So I wanted to make sure there was still a nice even layer of acrylic there. And then placing that cuticle bead down, being really careful and not to get any on what would be the skin. So I'm just tapping it up with the very tip of my brush and then pulling it down over the previous bead of acrylic, just going over that to make sure it's all nice and smooth. And as you can see, the shimmer in Slush Fairy really does get stuck to your brush. So always make sure to really rinse that off or clean it off well with your monomer before going into your next colour or your clear layer for encapsulating. So it is a lot easier when you're using shimmery colours to have two separate pots of monomer. And then here you'll see I made it a lot easier just by picking up a couple of stars at a time and using the tip of my brush just to nudge them around, and then I'm just pressing them into that tacky acrylic just to help hold them in place. This pot of stars has a lot of mixed sizes, so there are quite a few small ones in there as well, which is fab. And I'm then going to come in and encapsulate. So I'm encapsulating with my CJP crystal glass. I've placed a medium-sized bead down, halfway down the nail roughly, and then I'm just walking that down towards the free edge, just patting it from side to side, trying to get my application as neat and as even as possible. And then I'm going to come in with my next bead of acrylic and just work my way up the nail. So I place it down, blend out the back of it, and then I'm just pulling the top of that bead down towards the free edge. And then with my cuticle and apex bead, you'll see I place this down roughly in that apex area, blend it out slightly up towards the cuticle because we don't want a bulky cuticle area. And then I'm just feathering the top of that bead down towards the free edge again, leaving the bulk of it in that apex area because that's where we want our strength and structure. And then once again, I'm going to do exactly the same here on the little finger. So I'm working slightly wetter when I'm encapsulating, especially with chunky glitters like this, just to make sure that clear acrylic gets all the way around the chunky edges of the stars, just to help make sure that they're all fully encapsulated. And that's also why you don't want a too thick layer underneath your chunky glitters, because if your first layer is thick and then you've got your chunky glitters and then you've got to encapsulate, you'll end up with a chunky nail. So just try to keep each of your layers nice and thin. And I wanted the little finger and the pointer finger to look quite soft and subtle because I wanted the main focus of the set to be those two water decal nails. And I felt just adding the stars against that soft pink background still gave you a little bit of something special, but without it being too in your face. So now those nails are set, we're going to move on to the middle and ring finger. So I have already done the middle finger and I'm doing exactly the same as I did here on the ring finger. And I'm basically just doing a white acrylic base. So I'm applying a thin layer of white acrylic. This is CJP Snow White, and it is a little tricky to work with, but it is the brightest of their whites, I find. So I'm just painting this on nice and thick because I do find Snow White a little tricky to work with because of how pigmented it is. So if I'm doing a full nail with it, I find it a lot easier to just do a thin layer of the white and then encapsulate it in the clear. So once I've got my thin layer down and I'm happy with how opaque it is, and I'm just making sure here that the coverage is nice and even, there's not no shadowing or any lumps or bumps that will show through. And then once I'm happy with that, I'm just going to come in with my crystal glass and encapsulate. Snow White is a core powder, so it doesn't technically need to be encapsulated. I'm just doing it because this is how I find it easiest to work with. And I did here just encapsulate it in the one bead. I'm only needing to build up that strength and structure a little bit because we've got the clear base. Snow White is a core powder, so I'm just mainly putting that bit of extra product there for the apex. And then here I felt as though the tip looked a little bit thin, so I did just come in there to thicken that up a little. And then that is our bases for our water decals done. So this was how the acrylic looked once it had been applied. I then went off camera and filed and shaped the nails, made sure to give them a really good scrub to remove all of the dust. I did also buff over them with a 180 grit buffing block, and we're ready to come in with those gorgeous decals. So I absolutely love how cute these look, and I decided I would use these two here that I just pointed out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my stalk scissors and I'm going to cut around the decal, and I'm going to cut as close to that image as I can. So I think I roughly cut it out first of all just to get it off the sheet, and then I just go back in here and there just to get as close to the image as possible. You don't want too much of the white there because that will just come off as the clear excess, and it's a lot easier to work with the less excess you have. So I'm just, like I said, cutting as close to the image as possible. You could be really careful and get even closer if you wanted to. And then I'm just measuring that up against my nail before soaking it in water just to see how I want to position it. And then I'm going to soak it in some room temperature water for around 10 to 20 seconds. But whilst that's soaking, what I'm going to do is come in and apply a base coat to the nails. Now you don't have to do this step. This is just my personal preference of applying these style water decals where they're that full coverage. If I'm just using small decals, I won't usually do it this way, but I like to do it this way if I'm using a more full coverage one where I might want to play around with the positioning a little bit more. So I popped that layer of base coat down, left it wet, and then I'm taking my water decal out of the water, I dabbed off some of the excess, and then I'm just really gently pulling that off the backing paper, and again just dabbing off some of that excess water. Try not to let go of the water decal because it's a little tricky to pick up. And then I'm placing it down into that uncured base coat, just moving it around until I'm happy with how it's positioned. And I'm trying to be really gentle with the water decals so I don't cause any damage to the image. And I'm then going to pop that into Cure and it will hold the decal in place. So then I'm going to do exactly the same on the ring finger, starting off with that really thin layer of base coat. Now you don't have to do it this way, you can do it the traditional way and it does still work just as well. I just personally find this way that a little bit easier. I picked this trick up from another nail tech. And I just find it easier because when working with these style decals, having that layer of base coat there just allows you to be able to move them around longer before they're not going to start drying in place basically. So it really gives you that little bit more time to get any creases out and pull the decal into the position that you want it in. So again, I'm just placing down Mickey here, really smoothing it out. You can see here, I'm just pulling it taut at the sides and just taking my time to get him exactly where I want him. And I'm just pulling him taut because that will help you get out any of the creases. And then you can see up here at the cuticle area where we're working over a acrylic extension, you've got the apex there. So sometimes it can be a little bit tricky because the nail is rounded and the decal is flat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my Glamorly's hand off of the stand, just flip it around so that it's facing me, and then I'm just going to hold the decal where I've placed it and just nick into that decal ever so slightly. This just allows me to pull it over and just get that crease out and get it to lie nice and flat. And then once I'm happy with how that is positioned, I'll pop it in to cure for 60 seconds. And then once they are cured in place, we're ready to move on to that next step, which is going to be removing the excess decal at the sides. So what I'm basically going to do first of all is apply a thin layer of top coat over the top of both of those decals and then pop them in to cure for 60 seconds. So this first coat of top coat is just to protect the decal from my filing because I'm going to use a hand file to remove that excess decal. So I'm just popped that in to cure, and then I'm taking an old file so it's quite soft and I'm really gently going along the sides of the nail, and you will see it just removes that excess decal that was overlapping. You'll see it a little bit more on the next nail here. So I'm just showed you there where it's sticking up. The decal is cured in place and it's protected from the top coat, so I'm able to file that off easily. And what you also want to do is just file in ever so slightly, so that that decal is just slightly off of your free edge and your sidewalls, so that when you top coat for the last time, the top coat fully seals that decal in place and then it will last the duration of the set. So first of all here, I'm just removing all of that dust from filing just to make sure it's all nice and clean. I'm also just double checking that there isn't no decal hanging over the sides at all. You don't want any hanging over. Any excess will peel and just cause the product to break down. Once I have finished dusting off all of the nails, I'm just going to take some alcohol on a lint-free pad and just really give the nails a good clean to make sure all of that dust is removed. And then I'm going to come in with my CJP tack-free top gloss and top coat all of the nails. So when it comes to top coating over the water decals, I like to just work slightly thicker with the top coat and just float it over just to make sure it really seals in that water decal. I don't really need to double top coat because we have already popped that layer of top coat down before filing, so the decal itself is already quite protected. So then once I have finished top coating, I'll pop these in to cure for 60 seconds, and that, guys, is the end of the video. I really hope you all enjoyed watching. I thought these were super cute and they are really easy to do, so they're great for when people are back in the salon, hopefully, fingers crossed, getting clients' nails done for Christmas. So do check out the Candy Nails UK website if you are looking for some water decals. If you did enjoy the video, please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I shall see you all very soon. Lots of love. Bye bye.